Consider this fundamental truth. Your consciousness is the only reality. Everything you perceive outside yourself is simply consciousness externalized. Your conversations, your arguments, your constant need to discuss and analyze your desires with others. These are all forms of diffusing the concentrated power of your imagination. When you speak of your desires before they are manifested, you scatter the seeds of creation to the wind rather than planting them firmly in the soil of consciousness. I knew a gentleman in New York, a brilliant businessman by all external standards, who constantly struggled to bring his grandest visions into being. Despite his intellect and connections, his most cherished dreams remained elusive. One evening after one of my lectures, he approached me with frustration evident in his demeanor. "Wayne," he said, "I've visualized, I've affirmed, I've done everything you've suggested, yet my business expansion refuses to materialize. What am I missing?" I looked at him and asked a simple question. "To whom have you spoken about these plans?" His expression revealed the answer before his words confirmed it. "Well, I've discussed them with my partners, my wife, my colleagues. I've been gathering opinions to refine my approach." "There," I replied, "is the root of your failure to manifest. You have violated the principle of silence." I explained to him that the unmanifested state is like a delicate embryo in the womb of consciousness. Exposure to the harsh light of external discussion can cause it to dissolve before it has gathered sufficient strength to be born into objective experience. I advised him to cease all discussion of his plans and to commune only with his own wonderful human imagination, which is God himself creating in him. 3 months later, this same gentleman approached me after another lecture, his face illuminated with joy. Without speaking a word, he handed me a newspaper clipping announcing the very business expansion he had been attempting to manifest. "I told no one," he whispered. "I simply knew it was done." This, my dear friends, is the power of silence and manifestation. When you learn to steal the external conversations and the internal dialogue of doubt, you become aware of signs that your manifestation is moving from the realm of imagination into the world of thought. Let me explain the mechanics of this process. Every desire once conceived in imagination exists immediately as a spiritual reality. Your consciousness has already accepted it as complete in what I call the fourth dimension, the realm of spiritual completion. The journey of manifestation is not one of creating something new, but rather of allowing what already exists in spiritual form to clothe itself in the garments of physicality. This journey from spiritual conception to physical birth requires gestation. And just as an expectant mother does not need to announce her pregnancy immediately to every acquaintance, so too should you guard the sacred state of your unmanifested desires until they are ready to reveal themselves naturally. During this gestation period, if you maintain faithful silence, not an anxious waiting silence, but a confident knowing silence, you will begin to witness signs of your manifestation approaching. These signs are confirmations from the universe that the seed you have planted in consciousness is indeed growing, developing, and preparing to burst forth into your three-dimensional reality. What are these signs? They are synchronicities so perfect, so mathematically precise in their timing that they could not possibly be mere coincidence. They are overheard conversations that seem to speak directly to the desire you have been nurturing in private. There are unexpected opportunities that align perfectly with your inner vision. There are resources appearing just when needed, people entering your life who possess exactly the connections or skills required for your manifestation. I recall a young woman who attended my lectures in Los Angeles. She had been visualizing a very specific home of Spanish-style villa with a red tile roof, a courtyard with a fountain and citrus trees in the garden. The price of such a home far exceeded her current financial means. But she faithfully applied the law of assumption, feeling the naturalness of owning such a home while maintaining complete silence about her desire. One afternoon, she found herself driving in an unfamiliar neighborhood due to a dead. As she rounded a corner, there stood the exact home she had been imagining in her mental scenes. Without thinking, she pulled over to admire it. An elderly gentleman was tending to the garden and, noticing her interest, approached her car. "Do you like this old place?" he asked. "It's beautiful," she replied, careful not to reveal the full extent of her recognition. The conversation that followed revealed that the man was preparing to sell the home, but dreaded dealing with real estate agents and open houses at his advanced age. He was looking for someone who would appreciate the home's character and history. Within weeks, through a series of events that can only be described as miraculous, the young woman arranged financing on terms that matched her budget precisely, and she acquired the home at a fraction of its market value. When she shared this story with me, she emphasized one crucial detail. I never told anyone what I was imagining, not even my closest friends. But once I began my mental work, I started seeing Spanish tiles everywhere. Magazine covers featuring similar homes appeared in my mailbox. Television programs suddenly showcased Spanish architecture. It was as though the entire universe was confirming that my assumption was being realized even before the physical home came into my experience. This, my dear friends, is the pattern of manifestation science that appears when one practices faithful silence. Your external reality begins to echo the contents of your consciousness in increasingly specific ways, building toward the complete externalization of your desire. Why does silence possess such power? The answer lies in understanding the nature of consciousness itself. Your consciousness is the only reality. I cannot emphasize this fundamental truth enough. What you are conscious of, you manifest. When you discuss your unmanifested desires, you become conscious of their absence, of the gap between your current state and your desired state. You focus awareness on the lack, not the fulfillment. Furthermore, the opinions and doubts of others become entangled with your pure vision. Their limited concepts of possibility infiltrate your consciousness, diluting the clarity of your assumption. Remember, the world is yourself pushed out. Others merely reflect back to you your own states of consciousness. If your consciousness is contaminated with doubt, the world will dutifully reflect that doubt back to you in countless ways. In silence, however, you maintain the purity of your vision. You commune directly with your own wonderful human imagination, which I remind you is God Himself in action within you. In this sacred silent communion, there is no contradiction, no doubt, no limitation imposed by conventional thinking. There is only the pure creative power of I am declaring what is true. Consider the wisdom in the biblical instruction, go tell no man. After healing the leper, Jesus commanded him to say nothing of what had occurred. Was this mere modesty on Jesus' part? No. It was a profound spiritual instruction related to the law of manifestation. The transformed state, the healed condition needed to root itself firmly in consciousness before exposure to the doubts and contrary beliefs of others. Similarly, when Peter, James, John witnessed the transfiguration of Jesus on the mountain, they were instructed to tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. The vision that revealed spiritual reality required protection from the limiting beliefs of the unenlightened mind until it could fully manifest in the world of form. I urge you to adopt this same sacred silence regarding your own transformations and manifestations in progress. When you feel the naturalness of your desire fulfilled, seal it with silence. Know within yourself it is done. Then move through your days, alert but relaxed, watching for the signs of your manifestation approaching. The signs will come. They always do, for it is law. Not wishful thinking, not vague metaphysics, but immutable law, as exact as mathematics. Besides, follow the faithful practice of silence with the same certainty that day follows night. A gentleman once approached me after repeatedly failing to manifest a significant career advancement. I've been affirming my new position for months, he explained, but nothing has materialized. Upon questioning him further, I discovered that he had been discussing his techniques with colleagues, explaining to his wife each evening how he was using the law of assumption to secure the promotion, even journaling extensively about the process rather than the completion. I advised him to cease all discussion or analysis or focus on the how of his manifestation. Instead, I instructed him to capture the feeling of already occupying the new position, to fall asleep each night in that consciousness, and to remain completely silent about it to everyone. Within 3 weeks, he began noticing peculiar coincidences. His current supervisor was unexpectedly transferred to another department. A project suited to showcase his unique talents landed on his desk. A senior executive who had never spoken with him previously began engaging him in conversation in the elevator. He recognized these as manifestation signs, the bridge of incidents constructing itself to lead to his desired end. 2 months after embracing the practice of silence, he was called into the director's office and offered precisely the position he had been imagining at a salary exceeding his original assumption. The most revealing aspect, he later told me, was that during the meeting, The director used phrases that were almost identical to those I had been hearing in my own imagination. It was as though I had scripted the entire conversation in advance. Indeed, he had done exactly that, for in the silence of his focused imagination, he had planted the seed that grew into that precise experience. The science you witnessed along the way was simply the evidence of that seed breaking ground, sending up its first tender shoots toward physical manifestation. Now, my friends, let me address a question that may be forming in your minds. If silence is so crucial, how does one distinguish between the wise silence that nurtures manifestation and the fearful silence that stems from doubt or shame regarding one's desires? The distinction lies in your inner feeling state. The silence I advocate is not the tense silence of anxiety, wondering if your desire will manifest. It is not the embarrassed silence of one who fears ridicule for their ambitions. Rather, it is the peaceful, confident silence of one who knows that what they have assumed in consciousness is already accomplished in spiritual reality and must by law project itself into physical experience. This silence is suffused with gratitude. It is as natural as the silence of one who, having deposited $1 million in the bank, feels no need to repeatedly announce their wealth to others. The knowing is enough. The inner acknowledgement is complete. In this state of grateful knowing silence, you carry yourself with a quiet confidence that others may notice but cannot quite define. This itself becomes a sign of your manifestation in progress. This subtle shift in your bearing, this unshakable certainty that permeates your being. I recall a dear friend who had spent years struggling with financial scarcity. After attending my lectures, she began applying the principle of silence to her manifestation of abundance. Rather than continuing to discuss her financial difficulties with friends and family, as had been her habit, she assumed the consciousness of wealth and held her silence. She reported to me the remarkable shift that occurred, Wayne. Within days of my new practice, I began finding coins on the sidewalk. Pennies at first, then nickels, then dimes and quarters. A rebate check I had forgotten about arrived in the mail. A client who had owed me a small sum for months suddenly paid their invoice. These were small amounts, to be sure, but I recognized them as signs confirming my new state of consciousness. She continued her faithful silence, neither boasting of these initial signs nor discussing her practice. The signs accelerated. A distant relative sent her birthday gift of $500, something that had never occurred previously. She was offered a project at work that came with an unexpected bonus. A property she had invested in years earlier, which had been sitting stagnant in value, received a purchase offer well above market price. Within 6 months, her financial situation had transformed completely. The fascinating aspect of her story was that each manifestation sign seemed to be calibrated perfectly to her expanding capacity to accept abundance. The universe did not immediately drop $1 million in her lap, which might have overwhelmed her consciousness and been rejected as impossible. Instead, evidence of her shifting financial reality appeared in graduated steps, each one expanding her acceptance of prosperity until the full manifestation of abundance became her natural state. This pattern of graduated science is common in significant manifestations. The universe, which is really your own wonderful human imagination operating beyond your conscious awareness, knows exactly how to build the bridge of incident that will carry you from your present state to your desired state in the most natural manner. Your task is simply to maintain the assumption of the wish fulfilled and to honor that assumption with faithful silence, watching with alert interest as the signs multiply around you. Now, there is another dimension to this practice of silence that we must explore, the silencing of the internal voice of doubt and contradiction. For many, this inner voice is far more destructive to manifestation than any external discussion could ever be. You may refrain from speaking of your desires to others, yet maintain a running commentary within your mind that contradicts the very state you are attempting to assume. This internal argument must be silenced if your manifestation is to proceed unimpeded. Remember the biblical injunction? Let the weak say, I am strong. Not I will be strong, not I am becoming strong, but I am strong. The full acknowledgement of the desired state is an accomplished fact. When the internal voice argues, but you are not strong, you are weak, true silence consists of gently but firmly refusing to entertain this contradiction. A useful practice is to respond to all internal doubts with a simple statement. That may be true in the world of shadows, but in the reality of my consciousness where creation actually occurs, I am precisely what I have assumed myself to be. Then return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This internal silence, this refusal to argue with your manifestation, creates a vacuum that must be filled. Nature abhors a vacuum, and into the quiet space created by your silence, doubts will flow fluvidence of your new reality. A distinguished physician who attended my lectures in San Francisco shared with me his experience with this practice. For years, he had struggled with an inner voice that constantly reminded him of his humble beginnings, suggesting he was an imposter in his profession, despite his credentials and accomplishments. After learning the principle of silence, he began systematically refusing to engage with these thoughts. Whenever the doubtful inner voice spoke, he would acknowledge it briefly, then firmly turn his attention to the consciousness of being an exceptional, confident physician, beloved by his patients and respected by his colleagues. The external signs were remarkable, he told me. Within weeks of adopting this practice of inner silence, I received an invitation to speak at a prestigious medical conference, something I had always desired but never been offered. A journal published an article I had submitted months earlier and had nearly forgotten about. Former patients began referring their friends and family to my practice in unprecedented numbers. The most striking sign, he continued, came when a senior colleague, who had always been somewhat cold toward me, stopped me in the hospital corridor and said, "I don't know what's different about you lately, but your diagnostic insights have been exceptional. I find myself looking forward to our consultations." Nothing in my technical abilities had changed. What had changed was my consciousness, and the science confirmed that my inner silence was bearing fruit. This, my friends, is the pattern you will observe in your own life when you practice both external and internal silence regarding your manifestations. The science will come with increasing frequency and specificity, confirming that the seed planted in imagination is growing toward its inevitable expression in reality. Now, allow me to address another aspect of silence and manifestation science that is seldom discussed but tremendously important. There will be times in your practice when, despite your faithful silence and consistent assumption, the external world seems to move in precisely the opposite direction from your desire. This apparent contradiction is itself a manifestation sign of the highest order, though few recognize it as such. When your external reality appears to worsen after you have assumed your wish fulfilled, it is evidence that the old structure of your life is being dismantled to make way for the new. This is what the Bible refers to as the shaking of the foundations, the necessary reorganization of your affairs that must precede the establishment of your new state. I recall a woman who had applied the law to manifest a happy marriage after years of disappointment in relationships. Upon assuming the consciousness of being happily married to a loving, compatible partner, she maintained perfect goddess about her inner work. Within weeks, her current relationship, which had been stagnant but comfortable, suddenly dissolved in a series of unexpected conflicts. Her living situation changed abruptly, forcing a move. A job opportunity arose, requiring relocation to another city. Friends expressed concern, seeing only the apparent dissolution of her life stability. Had she broken her silence and engaged with their concerns, accepting their perspective of tragedy and loss, the bridge of incidents would have been interrupted. Instead, she recognized these dramatic changes as necessary components of her manifestation, the clearing away of structures that could not support her new state of consciousness. She maintained both her assumption and her silence, watching with alert interest as events unfolded. Within 6 months of this apparent collapse of her previous life, she had met and married a man who embodied every quality she had included in her assumption in circumstances that could never have manifested had her previous relationship, location, and employment remained intact. The lesson here is profound. The signs of your manifestation may include apparent setbacks that are in reality the perfect path toward your desires' fulfillment. In silence, you develop the wisdom to recognize these signs correctly, neither resisting them nor interpreting them as failure of your manifestation. This brings us to a critical understanding about the practice of silence and silence of manifestation science. The ultimate purpose of this practice is not merely to obtain the things or circumstances you desire, but to develop a direct first-hand knowledge of how creation works. It is to experience yourself as the creative power of the universe, to know yourself as God in action. Each time you maintain faithful silence and witness the signs of your manifestation unfolding in perfect order, you deepen this knowledge. It becomes not merely an intellectual concept, but a lived experience as real and undeniable as your own hand before your face. With each successful manifestation, your consciousness expands. What once seemed miraculous becomes natural. What once required careful practice becomes spontaneous. You move gradually from the consciousness of applying techniques to manifest desires to the consciousness of being the manifestation power itself, expressing naturally through all aspects of your life. Consider the development of any skill, playing the piano for instance. The beginner must consciously think about each note, each finger placement. With practice, the conscious effort diminishes until the accomplished pianist plays complex compositions without thought, the music flowing through them as a natural expression of their being. So it is with manifestation. The conscious application of technique, the deliberate assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the disciplined maintenance of silence eventually gives way to spontaneous creative expression. You no longer use the law. You experience yourself as the law in operation. The observation of manifestation signs plays a crucial role in this development. Each sign you recognize is confirmation not merely of your specific desires' progress, but of the broader truth of your creative nature. Each sign strengthens your conviction not in the law as something external to be applied, but in yourself as the created principle in expression. I knew a man who began his study of the law with small manifestations, parking spaces, unexpected sums of money, specific encounters. He practiced faithful silence and became adept at recognizing the signs that preceded each manifestation. As his confidence grew, he expanded his application to larger desires of specific home, a career advancement, the resolution of a long-standing family conflict. In each case, his recognition of the preliminary science strengthened his conviction in the inevitable fulfillment of his assumption. After several years of this practice, I noticed a profound shift in his demeanor and his reports of his experience. He no longer spoke of working to manifest specific desires. Instead, he described living in a state of continuous creation where his consciousness naturally expressed as harmonious conditions without deliberate effort. The most significant change, he told me, is that I no longer see manifestation signs as separate events pointing towards some future fulfillment. I now recognize that all of experience is a sign, a reflection of what I am conscious of being. The entire universe is a manifestation sign, responding precisely to my state of consciousness in each moment. This, my friends, is the higher understanding toward which our practice leads. The ultimate silence is not merely the disciplined non-discussion of specific desires, it is the tranquil mind that has transcended the need for external validation of its creative power. The ultimate recognition of science is not merely noticing synchronicities that precede manifestation, it is the direct perception of all experience as the immediate expression of consciousness. Now, some of you may wonder, if silence is so crucial to successful manifestation, how are we to understand the scriptural injunction to make your requests known unto God? Does this not imply that we should speak our desires? The resolution of this apparent contradiction lies in correctly identifying who or what God is. God is not an entity separate from yourself to whom requests must be communicated. God is your own wonderful human imagination. The speech that communicates with God is not verbal expression, but the language of feeling and assumption. You make your request known unto God by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, by experiencing in imagination the reality of your desire accomplished. This inner communication requires no words, no verbal or written expression. It is the direct impregnation of the subconscious through the medium of feeling. This is the true meaning of prayer. Not beseeching an external deity, but communing with the creative power of your own consciousness through the assumption of the reality of your desire. And this communion is most perfect when wrapped in golden silence, undisturbed by the contradictions of external discussion or internal doubt. Let me share with you a personal experience that illustrates this principle with particular clarity. Many years ago, before I fully understood the law as I now teach it, I desired to leave the island of Barbados and travel to the United States. The circumstances of my life at that time made such a journey seem impossible. I had no money, no connections in America, no obvious path to realize this desire. One night, in the quiet of my small room, I applied what I then understood of imaginative power. Rather than speaking my wish to others or even formulating it in words within my own mind, I simply assumed the feeling of being in New York City. I felt the cool air of a New York autumn compared to the tropical climate I knew. I felt the solidity of pavement beneath my feet rather than the familiar island soil. I heard the unique cacophony of New York traffic replacing the sounds of my island home. I maintained complete silence about this inner work. I told no one of my desire to travel to America, nor of my imaginative practice. Indeed, I scarcely acknowledged it consciously to myself after that night, returning to my daily routine without anxious attention to my manifestation. Within weeks, I began noticing unusual signs. A newspaper article about New York appeared prominently, though I had never sought such information. A distant acquaintance of my family mentioned their connection to someone in the shipping industry. Small sums of money came to me through unexpected channels. Had I discussed these signs with others, they would have seemed insignificant, coincidental. Had I analyzed them anxiously, trying to construct a logical bridge between these occurrences and my desired travel, I might have dismissed them as insufficient. But in my silence, I simply observed them with quiet interest, neither doubting nor attaching excessive significance to them. The signs accumulated. The seemingly disconnected events formed a pattern that in retrospect was leading unnervingly toward the fulfill my desire. Within months, through a series of circumstances that appeared miraculous from the outside, but that I recognized as the natural unfoldment of my assumption, I found myself aboard a ship bound for New York, all obstacles having been dissolved through no conscious effort of my own. This experience and countless others in my life and in the lives of those who have applied these principles has convinced me beyond any doubt of the created power of consciousness and the crucial role of silence in allowing that power to express freely. The signs of manifestation are always present for those with eyes to see and the wisdom to remain silent as the seed of assumption grows to fruition. These signs are not coincidences, not random events, but the logical, lawful unfoldment of the creative process initiated in consciousness. My friends, as we approach the conclusion of our discussion, let me emphasize more staying silent the fire soil in which your manifestations grow most vigorously. External silence, refraining from discussion of your desires and practices, protects the delicate seed of assumption from the potentially withering effect of contradiction and doubt from others. Internal silence, refusing to engage with your own questioning thoughts, maintains the integrity of your assumption until it manifests as objective fact. In this dual silence, you will indeed start seeing manifestation signs everywhere. The entire universe will rearrange itself to reflect the truth of what you have accepted in consciousness. These signs are not the fulfillment itself, but the shadows cast by the approaching manifestation as it moves from the realm of imagination into physical expression. Learn to recognize these signs without breaking your silence to discuss them. Acknowledge them privately as confirmation of your creative power. Then continue in the calm assumption of your wish fulfilled. The science will multiply and intensify until the full manifestation stands before you as accomplished fact. Remember always, your consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, you must become in the silence of pure assumption, undisturbed by external discussion or internal contradiction. This creative process proceeds with perfect precision according to law. I challenge you to test this principle in your own experience. Select a desire, perhaps something that has thus far eluded your attempts at manifestation. Formulate clearly in your mind the state you wish to attain. Then, in a moment of quiet relaxation, assume the feeling of already having realized this state. Feel the naturalness of it, the reality of it, until the assumption carries the conviction of reality. Then maintain your silence, both external and internal. Tell no one of what you have done. Do not analyze the process or look anxiously for results. Simply live from the assumption that what you have imagined is already fact. Watch with alert but detached interest as the signs begin to appear in your world. Note them. Acknowledge them privately, then continue in your calm assumption. The signs will increase in frequency and relevance, constructing the bridge of incidents that leads inevitably to your manifestation's complete expression in reality. This is the law, and it operates with mathematical precision for anyone who applies it correctly. The silence you maintain is not inaction, but the most profound form of action. The deliberate focusing of creative power without dissipation through speech or doubt. In this silence, you participate consciously in the divine creative process that is your birthright. You experience yourself as God in action, as the imagining power that shapes reality itself. There's no higher calling, no more worthy endeavor than this conscious cooperation with the creative principle of the universe. So I say to you with all the conviction of my being, stay silent and you will indeed see manifestation signs everywhere. Signs that confirm your true identity as the operant power of the universe. Signs that validate your direct participation in the creation of your reality. signs that herald the imminent expression of your assumption as concrete fact in your world. The signs are the shadows cast by your approaching manifestation. The fulfillment itself, the complete expression of your assumption in physical reality, follows the signs with the same certainty that the body follows the shadow, that the object follows its reflection. In faithful silence, observe these signs with gratitude and continuing confidence in the perfect operation of the law. Then when your manifestation stands before you as accomplished fact, you may speak of it, if you wish, not as something gained through technique or effort, but as the natural expression of what you have been conscious of being. This is the mystery and the glory of your creative nature. This is the practical application of the highest spiritual truth. This is the law that sets you free from limitation and reveals you to yourself as the divine creative power in expression. Stay silent. Watch for the signs. And know beyond all doubt that what you have assumed in consciousness must manifest in your experience. It is done. For what is manifestation but the natural expression of consciousness? It is the externalization of an internal state. When you truly understand this principle, you will never again doubt your creative power. Tonight I bring you tidings of great joy. Your manifestation is confirmed. The universe is responding to your assumptions, to the state you have occupied, and everything needed for the fulfillment of your desires now in motion. I speak not of some distant hope or promise for the future. I speak of a principle that operates with mathematical precision in the eternal now. Before they call, I will answer, says Scripture. Your manifestation is already complete in what we might call the fourth dimensional world, and it is now being projected into your three-dimensional experience. Many of you have been faithful in your imaginal acts. You have persisted in the assumption that your desire is fulfilled. You have slept in the consciousness of the wish fulfilled, and now the universe conspires to show you the fruits of your mental labor. This is law, not luck. This is principle, not chance. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Your faith, which is nothing more than your controlled and directed consciousness, has substantiated your desire in the spiritual realm. The evidence is now making its way into your visible world, and this message reaches you at the perfect time to confirm what you already know in the depths of your being. Do you remember the countless nights you spent in faithful prayer? Not the prayer of begging, but the prayer of assumption, feeling yourself into the state of your wish fulfilled. Those moments were not in vain. They were creative acts, as tangible in their cognitive power as any physical action in this world. Consider this truth. Whatever you are conscious of being, you must and shall become. This is the true meaning of manifestation. It is not about attracting something foreign to yourself. It is about embodying in consciousness the very state that you desire to express. I am is the self-definition of the absolute. When you declare, I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am loved, you are defining yourself by these states, and the universe must respond accordingly. Many of you have asked for signs. You have looked to the outer world for confirmation of your inner work, and here it is. This message is your sign. The universe has sent you this precise communication to confirm that your manifestation is unfolding according to divine timing. Not a moment too soon, not a second too late. Let me share with you a principle that has transformed countless lives. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption despite all evidence to the contrary, you are exercising true faith. And this faith is not blind hope. It is the controlled direction of consciousness, the most powerful force in existence. The outer world may still show you conditions that contradict your desire. Friends and family may question your certainty. Your own senses may argue against your assumption. But I tell you this, the outer world is merely the shadow of past assumptions. It has no power to create or to prevent. It simply reflects. What you are experiencing now is the harvest of seeds planted in the past. But in this very moment, you are planting new seeds through your I am consciousness, and those seeds must bear fruit after their kind. It is law. Tonight I invite you to deepen your awareness of this principle. Feel the relief, the satisfaction, the gratitude that naturally accompanies the fulfillment of desire. For when you genuinely feel these emotions, you are not anticipating future fulfillment. You are acknowledging present possession. This is the secret of manifestation. Some of you may ask, but Wayne, if my desire is already fulfilled in the spiritual realm, why does it not immediately appear in my world? Remember the divine timing of all things. Between the impregnation of consciousness and the manifestation in the outer world, there is a period of gestation. The seed must develop according to its nature. During this period, you must maintain your faith. You must continue to live from the end, occupying the state of fulfillment in your imagination. For imagination is the very substance of reality clothed in the appearance of the outer world. Now let us consider the power of your attention. Whatever you focus upon expands in your experience. If you focus on lack, you perpetuate lack. If you focus on abundance, you perpetuate abundance. This is why I urge you to withdraw your attention from all circumstances that contradict your desire. Give them no power by giving them no thought. The universe responds not to your wishes or your wants, but to your consciousness, to what you accept as true. When you truly accept in the depths of your being that your desire is fulfilled, all the powers of heaven and earth move to bring about its expression in your world. Many of you have struggled with this concept. You have tried to convince yourselves that you believe while secretly harboring doubts. But true faith is not self-deception. It is the natural response to a spiritual fact clearly perceived. When you truly see in your imagination the reality of your fulfilled desire, doubt becomes impossible. Consider this. When you sit in a chair, do you doubt that it will support you? Of course not. You have complete faith in the chair because your experience has taught you to trust it. In the same way as you practice living from the end and witness the resulting manifestations, your faith in this principle becomes unshakable. Tonight, I bring you confirmation. The universe has guided you to this message as evidence that your inner work is bearing fruit. Your manifestation is unfolding exactly as it should in divine order and perfect timing. Remember the words of Scripture. All things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive. The key word here is believing, not hoping, not wishing, but knowing with unwavering certainty. And this certainty comes not from external evidence, but from the clarity of your vision in consciousness. Let me tell you a story from my own experience that illustrates this principle. Many years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados to visit my family, but I had no money for passage and no apparent means of obtaining it. Rather than dwelling on these limiting circumstances, I assumed the feeling of already being in Barbados, surrounded by my loved ones. Each night as I fell asleep, I would imagine the unique sounds of my island home, feel the tropical breeze on my skin, and hear the voices of my family welcoming me. I persisted in this assumption, never wavering in my faith. Within a short time, through a series of events that no human could have orchestrated, I received an unexpected sum of money, exactly the amount needed for my passage. The outer circumstances rearranged themselves to conform to my inner assumption. This was not coincidence, it was law. I tell you this not to impress you, but to impress upon you the absolute certainty of this principle. What you persistently imagine and feel as true must and will externalize itself in your experience. There is no other way. Now, some of you may be thinking of your specific desires: a new home, a loving relationship, financial abundance, perfect health. Whatever your desire may be, the principle remains the same. You must assume the feeling of already being, having, or doing that which you desire. You must live from the end. This requires a fundamental shift in consciousness. Instead of seeing yourself as moving toward your goal, see yourself as having already attained it. Instead of working to achieve your desire, work from the position of its fulfillment. This subtle distinction makes all the difference in the world. When you truly understand this, manifestation ceases to be a mystery and becomes a simple matter of aligning your consciousness with the reality you wish to experience. The universe is not responding to your actions, your words, or even your conscious thoughts. It is responding to your state of being, to what you accept as true in the depths of your soul. Let me address a question that arises in many minds. What about others? Can I manifest changes in another person's behavior? Remember this eternal truth. Everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. What you experience in others is a reflection of your own consciousness. You cannot change another through force of will or through external action. But when you change your conception of another, when you see them in your imagination as you wish them to be, they must conform to this new ideal. Not because you have power over them, but because there's only one consciousness diversified in seemingly separate beings. This is why forgiveness is so crucial to manifestation. When you truly forgive, you are releasing the old conception of a person or situation and creating space for a new expression. Forgiveness is not about condoning behavior. It is about freeing yourself from the bonds of past impressions. I urge you to practice radical forgiveness of others, of circumstances, and most importantly of yourself. For many of you carry the burden of self-condemnation, believing yourselves unworthy of your desires. But I tell you this, worthiness is not a prerequisite for manifestation. The sun shines on the just and the unjust alike. The law of consciousness responds to all without judgment or discrimination. Your desires are not random. They are placed within you by the divine as a blueprint for your expansion and fulfillment. The very fact that you can conceive of a desire is evidence of your capacity to achieve it, for consciousness cannot desire something that it cannot express. Now let us turn our attention to the concept of divine timing. Many of you grow impatient when your manifestation does not appear according to your schedule. But remember, in the realm of spirit, there is no time as you know it. There is only the eternal now in which all possibilities exist simultaneously. What appears as delay in the outer world is often divine timing in the spiritual realm. The seed you have planted in consciousness may require a period of gestation. During this time, unseen forces are at work, arranging circumstances, inspiring actions, guiding individuals, all to bring about the perfect expression of your desire. Trust the process, trust the timing, and most importantly, trust yourself, the God self within you that knows exactly how and when to bring your good to manifestation. I want to address another common obstacle to manifestation, the tendency to dig up the seed to see if it's growing. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't continuously unearth it to check its progress. You trust that it is developing according to its nature, invisible to your eyes, but absolutely certain in its growth. In the same way, once you have planted the seed of desire in consciousness through your imaginal act, allow it to develop without anxious monitoring. Your role is to water it with continued faith and to protect it from the weeds of doubt and fear. Many of you sabotage your manifestations by constantly checking for evidence. And when that evidence is not immediately apparent, you fall back into the old state of lack or limitation, this vacillation between states, the manifestation of your desire. Choose your state consciously and dwell there faithfully. This is the art of manifestation, not the anxious pursuit of a future goal, but the peaceful occupation of a present reality in consciousness. Tonight, I bring you confirmation that your imaginal work is bearing fruit. The universe has guided you to this message as evidence of your creative power. Your manifestation is unfolding with perfect precision, and this communication is a signpost along the way. Consider the power of your words, which are the outer expression of your consciousness. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, says Scripture. Your declarations, both silent and spoken, shape your reality. So guard your speech, carefully ensuring that it aligns with your desired state, not with the limitations of the current appearance. Instead of saying, I am trying to manifest, say, I have manifested. Instead of saying, I hope it will happen, say, I am grateful that it has happened. Speak from the end, just as you imagine from the end. Let your words reflect not what your eyes show you, but what your imagination knows to be true. This brings us to an important aspect of manifestation, gratitude. Genuine gratitude is not merely saying thank you for something you hope to receive. It is the soul's recognition of already having received. When you give thanks from the depth of your being for your manifested desire, you are affirming its reality and consciousness and thus hastening its appearance in experience. Practice gratitude not as a technique to get something, but as an acknowledgement of something already possessed. This subtle distinction transforms gratitude from a method into a revelation of the truth that all you desire is already yours in consciousness. Now let me address those of you who have been practicing these principles without seeing the results you desire. First, examine your imaginal acts. Are you truly dwelling in the end, or are you subtly reinforcing the current limitations? Are you living from the state of fulfillment, or are you merely visiting it occasionally while maintaining residence in the state of lack? Manifestation requires consistency, not of effort, but of state. It is not the occasional intense imaginal session that brings results, but the habitual occupation of the desired state. Your assumptions to be effective must be more than mental exercises. They must become the core of your being. Many of you may find it challenging to maintain this consistency in the face of contradictory evidence. This is where the power of revision becomes invaluable. At the end of each day, review the events that seem to deny your desired state, and in your imagination, revise them to align with your ideal. If someone spoke words that imply limitation, revise the conversation in your mind to hear them confirming your abundance. If circumstances appear to move away from your goal, reimagine them as stepping stones toward it. This practice of revision prevents the accumulation of contradictory impressions and maintains the integrity of your chosen state. Let me emphasize a truth that many of you have overlooked. The outer world has no power to create or to prevent. It is purely responsive, never positive. Your circumstances do not determine your consciousness. Your consciousness determines your circumstances. Therefore, no matter what appears in your experience today, you have the power to transform it through a simple shift in consciousness. This shift is not a denial of current facts, but a recognition of a higher truth, that facts are merely the shadow of past assumptions and have no power to determine future experience. Many of you have asked about the role of action and manifestation. Should you act to bring about your desire, or should you wait for it to appear? The answer lies in understanding inspired action versus calculated action. When you genuinely occupy the state of your wish fulfilled, you will be moved from within to take certain actions. These actions will not be calculated efforts to achieve your desire, but natural expressions of the state you have assumed. They will feel effortless, joyful, and perfectly aligned with your being. This is inspired action. Action that flows from the state of fulfillment, not action that strives toward it. The distinction is subtle but significant. One comes from abundance, the other from lack. One expresses, the other pursues. Trust the inner prompting that comes from your assumed state and follow it without hesitation. Now let us consider a principle that few truly understand: the identity of imagination and reality. Most people believe that imagination is separate from reality, a kind of mental fantasy distinct from the solid facts of existence. But I tell you this, imagination is reality itself in a different dimension of expression. What you imagine is not less real than what you experience with your senses. It is simply operating on a different level of manifestation. The spiritual precedes and shapes the physical, just as the blueprint precedes and shapes the building. Your imaginal acts are the blueprints of your experience. When you truly grasp this principle, you will no longer suffer the anxiety of waiting for your desire to manifest. You will know that in the act of imagining, you have already received. The outer expression is merely the shadow following the substance of your imagination. The universe has sent you this confirmation because you are ready to elevate your understanding of manifestation from the level of technique to the level of principle. Techniques may be useful as aids to concentration, but it is the principle that produces results, and the principle is simple. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you are conscious of being, you must become. Many of you have divided your consciousness, believing one thing in your imagination while accepting something different as reality. This division must be healed for successful manifestation. There must be a perfect agreement between your inner and outer acceptance, between what you imagine and what you believe to be real. This is why I emphasize living from the end. When you truly live from the state of fulfillment, you do not mentally place your desire in the future. You experience it as present fact here and now. This present tense experience in imagination becomes the bridge of incidents leading to its physical expression. Consider this profound truth. The feeling is the secret, not the intellectual acceptance, not the verbal affirmation, but the feeling. When you can genuinely feel yourself into the state of your wish fulfilled, you have found the secret of manifestation. This feeling is more than emotion. It is the soul's recognition of a state as its own. It is the merging of your being with the desired state until there is no separation, no striving, no becoming, only being. Tonight, as the universe confirms your manifestation, I urge you to deepen this feeling. Let it permeate every aspect of your consciousness until you no longer remember what it was like to desire what you now possess in consciousness. Many of you wonder about the mechanics of manifestation. How exactly does the imaginal act translate into physical experience? While the complete answer transcends human understanding, we can comprehend this much. Consciousness is the substance from which all reality is formed, and imagination is the tool that shapes this substance. When you imagine, you are not creating mental pictures separate from reality. You are creating the very substance of experience in its initial form. This form then passes through various stages of manifestation until it appears as tangible reality. The time lag between the imaginal act and its physical expression is what you perceive as the process of manifestation. But in truth, there is no process, only the translation of a reality from one state of perception to another. The desire is fulfilled the moment you assume the feeling of its fulfillment in imagination. Its appearance in your outer world is merely the final stage of a journey already completed. Now let me address a question that troubles many sincere students of this principle. Why do some desires manifest quickly while others seem to take forever? The answer lies not in the magnitude of the desire, but in your acceptance of its fulfillment. Some states you accept easily without inner conflict or contradiction. These manifest quickly. Others you may consciously affirm while subconsciously denying, creating a division in consciousness that delays manifestation. The key to swift manifestation is wholehearted acceptance, not just with your conscious mind, but with your entire being. When every aspect of your consciousness aligns with your desire, when there is no part of you that questions or doubts its fulfillment, manifestation becomes instantaneous. This is why I urge you to examine your beliefs, not just your conscious beliefs, but the deeper assumptions that may be operating below the level of awareness. For these subconscious beliefs often exert more influence on your manifestations than your conscious affirmations. How do you uncover these hidden beliefs? By observing your manifestations. Your experience is the perfect mirror of your true beliefs. If your manifestations consistently fall short in a particular area, you can be certain that there is a limiting belief operating in that domain. Once identified, these beliefs can be transformed through the same principle that governs all manifestation, the conscious assumption of the opposite state. If you discover a belief in limitation, assume the feeling of abundance. If you uncover a belief in unworthiness, assume the feeling of deserving. This assumption persisted in will revise the subconscious programming and remove the block to manifestation. The universe has sent you this confirmation because you are ready to clear these hidden obstacles. You are prepared to align your entire being with your desire, creating the perfect conditions for manifestation. Let me now address the relationship between desire and detachment, which confuses many students of manifestation. You are told to desire fervently, yet detach from the outcome. How is this possible? The answer lies in understanding the true nature of detachment. Detachment is not indifference to your desire. It is not pretending not to care. It is the profound recognition that your desire is already fulfilled in consciousness, and therefore there is nothing to be anxious about, nothing to strive for, nothing to worry over. It is the peace that comes from knowing the end is secure. True detachment comes naturally when you live from the end. When you genuinely feel that you already have what you desire, the desperate craving for it dissolves. You are detached not from the desire itself, but from the sense of lack that typically accompanies unfulfilled desire. This is the paradox manifestation. The more completely feel the fulfillment of your desire and imagination, the more detached you become from its absence in the outer world. And this very detachment accelerates its manifestation. The universe confirms your manifestation tonight because you have reached or are approaching this state of fulfilled detachment. You are learning to rest in the consciousness of completion, even as you wait for its expression in experience. Now let us explore an aspect of manifestation that is often overlooked, the role of your self-concept. Your self-concept is the collection of beliefs you hold about yourself, your identity, your worth, your capabilities. It determines not only what you can manifest, but what you will allow yourself to manifest. Many of you create specific manifestations that align with your desire only to sabotage them because they conflict with your deeper self-concept. If you see yourself as undeserving, no technique of manifestation will override this core belief. The manifestation may appear briefly, but it will not persist unless it aligns with who you believe yourself to be. This is why the most powerful manifestation work begins with the transformation of the self-concept. Before you can consistently manifest specific desires, you must manifest the self who naturally possesses those desires. You must revise your identity to match your aspirations. How do you revise your self-concept? Through the same principle that governs all manifestation, the conscious assumption of the state. You must assume the feeling of being the person who naturally experiences your desired reality. You must live from the identity that aligns with your aspirations. This work on the self-concept explains why some manifestations seem to require more time and persistence than others. When a desire aligns with your existing self-concept, it manifests easily. When it requires a profound shift in identity, the manifestation unfolds through a series of transformations, each building upon the last until the new self-concept is fully established. The universe has sent you this confirmation because you are ready to embrace a higher self-concept. You are prepared to release the limitations of the past and to assume the identity that naturally attracts your desires. Consider the words of Scripture. Put off the old man and put on the new man. This is not merely moral instruction. It is a practical guide to manifestation. The old man is your previous self-concept with all its limitations and contradictions. The new man is the self who naturally embodies your desires as you consistently embody this new self in imagination. The outer expression must follow. This brings us to another essential aspect of manifestation: persistence. Many of you practice these principles sporadically, assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled for a brief time, then returning to the old state of consciousness. This vacillation creates mixed results, manifestations that come and go, reflecting the inconsistency of your state. Persistence does not mean effort or strain. It means maintaining your chosen state regardless of appearances until it becomes your dwelling place. It means refusing to be moved by contradictory evidence, knowing that the outer must eventually conform to the inner. How long must you persist until your assumption hardens into fact? For some desires, this may occur quickly. For others, especially those that require significant revision of your self-concept, it may require more time, but the principle is certain. What you persistently assume must externalize itself in your experience. The universe confirms your manifestation because it recognizes your growing capacity for persistence. You are learning to maintain your chosen state with increasing faithfulness, creating the perfect conditions for manifestation. Now, let me address a question that arises for many sincere students. What about the desires of others? What if my manifestation conflicts with someone else's? This question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of consciousness and reality. In truth, there is only one consciousness appearing as many. Your manifestation cannot conflict with another's because at the deepest level there is no other. What appears as conflict is merely the outworking of different states of consciousness within the one mind. When you truly understand this principle, you realize that manifestation is not about imposing your will upon a separate reality. It is about aligning your individual expression of consciousness with the universal harmony. When your desire arises from this alignment, it naturally benefits all, and no conflict is possible. This is why I emphasize that true desire comes from the depths of your being, not from the superficial ego. The desires that are placed within you by the divine are always in harmony with the good of all because they arise from the one consciousness that embraces all. The universe confirms your manifestation because it recognizes the purity of your desire. As you move beyond ego-based, wanting to soul-inspire, desiring your manifestations, increasingly express the divine harmony that benefits all. Let me now address the role of surrender in manifestation, which seems paradoxical to many. You are told to assume control of your reality through conscious imagination, yet also to surrender to the divine will. How can you do both? The answer lies in understanding the true nature of surrender. Surrender is not the abdication of your creative power. It is not passive acceptance of whatever comes. It is the recognition that your individual consciousness is one with the divine consciousness and that your true desires arise from this oneness. When you surrender in the context of manifestation, you are releasing your attachment to the how and the when while maintaining absolute faith in the what. You are acknowledging that the wisdom of the universe may bring about your manifestation in ways that transcend your limit. Conscension. This surrender actually accelerates manifestation because it removes the tension and anxiety that often block the natural expression of your desire. It creates space for infinite intelligence to arrange the perfect conditions for your good to appear. The universe confirms your manifestation because it recognizes your growing capacity for this higher form of surrender. Not the surrender of powerlessness, but the surrender of trust and faith. As we approach the conclusion of this message, I want to emphasize truth that will transform your understanding of manifestation. Your outer world is not random or accidental. It is not determined by forces beyond your control. It is the precise externalization of your consciousness reflecting with perfect accuracy the states you have occupied and the assumptions you have embodied. This means that nothing in your experience is exempt from the law of consciousness. Nothing is outside your sphere of influence. Everything from your intimate relationships to your financial circumstances, from your physical health to your spiritual understanding, is subject to transformation through the conscious direction of your emanation. When you truly comprehend this principle, you cease to be a victim of circumstances and become the conscious creator of your reality. You no longer react to conditions, you generate them. You no longer wait for change. You initiate it through the deliberate revision of your assumptions. The universe confirms your manifestation because it recognizes your readiness to accept this level of responsibility for your experience. You are prepared to acknowledge that your life is the perfect reflection of your consciousness and to use this knowledge not for self-condemnation but for creative transformation. Tonight I invite you to accept this confirmation from the universe. Embrace the truth that your manifestation is unfolding with perfect precision, guided by the wisdom of your divine self. Trust the process even when the outer evidence suggests delay or failure. Know that the seed you have planted in consciousness must bear fruit after its kind. And remember this eternal principle: the feeling is the secret. Not the intellectual understanding, not the verbal affirmation, but the feeling of already being what you desire to be, of already having what you desire to have, of already experiencing what you desire to experience. As you integrate this principle into your being, as you make it the foundation of your daily practice, you will witness the miraculous unfoldment of your desires in ways that transcend your expectations. For the wisdom that guides manifestation exceeds human understanding, arranging circumstances and inspiring actions with a precision that no human mind could conceive. The universe has sent you this confirmation because you stand at the threshold of a new understanding, a deeper application of the principle of conscious creation. You are ready to move beyond technique to embodiment, beyond periodic practice to consistent assumption. Go forth in the certainty that your manifestation is confirmed. Live from the state of fulfillment, regardless of appearances. Maintain your faith not as effort, but as the natural response to a truth clearly perceived. And watch as the outer world reshapes itself to match the inner reality you have established in consciousness. For this is the promise and the principle: what you are conscious of being, you must and shall become. It is law, not luck. It is principle, not chance, and it operates with mathematical precision in the life of a Oneian who applies it with understanding and faith. The universe confirms your manifestation. Accept this confirmation not as future promise, but as present fact. For in the reality of consciousness, where all manifestation begins, your desire is already fulfilled. Its appearance in time and space is merely the final stage of a journey already completed in the eternal.